Have you ever wondered why some men, even with wrinkles on their faces and gray hair, can attract young women with almost hypnotic ease? And the most curious thing, they are not the most beautiful nor the richest. The secret lies in something much more subtle, something that is within the reach of any mature man who wants to truly understand female psychology, applied to attraction and relationships. The kind of power that is not displayed with muscles, but is transmitted with a phrase said at the right time, with the right tone, with the right intention. You may not have the body of a 20-year-old, but there is something they will never have: mastery of emotional and strategic language. There are words that, when they come out of the mouth of an experienced man, provoke deep reactions in younger women. And we're not talking about cheap pickup lines or ready-made phrases from the internet. We're talking about real triggers that act directly on the female unconscious and that awaken an almost uncontrollable curiosity, a desire to know more, to get closer. These are phrases that convey security, direction, and true masculine energy. And most importantly, they show that you understand how a woman's emotional game works, without having to compete with younger men in appearance or effort. Today, I'm going to reveal to you 5 of these forbidden phrases that many men avoid for fear of seeming too bold, but that, in fact, act as keys to open emotional doors that most never even imagine exist. And at the end of the video, I'll show you the most common and destructive mistake that mature men make when trying to connect with young women. A mistake that can completely nullify your presence, even if you've said everything right up to that point. Now, before we get straight to the content, I want to hear from you. Have you ever felt invisible in a conversation with a younger woman? To think that, because of your age, she didn't even see you as an option? Right. Here in the comments, "I've felt it," or "I've never felt it." I want to know who I'm talking to right now, because what comes next will turn the key in your mind. If a 22-year-old man says this, she laughs. But when a 42-year-old man says it, something changes. It's not about the phrase itself, it's about the weight it carries coming from someone with experience, confidence, and presence. A friend of mine, a 48-year-old businessman, had a date with a 25-year-old girl. Nothing out of the ordinary, at first. But in the middle of the conversation, he dropped a simple, almost casual phrase. Her reaction was immediate. Attentive eyes, a restrained smile, a visible change in the energy between them. From that moment on, the game changed. And this phrase wasn't magic. It was strategic. It was loaded with the psychology of attraction, based on emotional perception and subliminal language. I don't run after anything. I choose who walks with me. When a mature man says this firmly and calmly, he activates one of the biggest triggers in the female mind: selective authority. The woman understands that he is not there out of need or desperation. He has a choice, and she feels like being chosen. With you, I can even forget about rushing. This phrase conveys a rare emotional maturity these days. It shows that you know how to savor the moment, that you are not in a rush, that you are not living in a blind race for approval. You remind me what it is to look curiously at the world. Here, you validate her youth without placing yourself as inferior. You honor her lightness without abandoning your position as a firm and conscious man. Some people try to impress. I prefer to connect. This phrase is a real cut through the superficiality. It shows that you are on another level, a level where connection is more important than performance. I don't have time for games, only for real experiences. This positioning you as a man who values truth, intensity, and presence. A young woman hearing this understands that she is dealing with someone different from the ones she is used to. Now tell me, which of these phrases have you used or would like to use? Comment below with the number of your favorite, or write, "I want more phrases like this," if you want a continuation with more practical examples. And remember, none of these phrases will work if your body language says otherwise. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about now. You can say much more with silence than others can say with 1,000 words. And when it comes to attracting a younger woman, this is one of the most ignored truths. The mature man who understands the psychology of female attraction knows that his strength lies not in impressing with long speeches or exaggerated gestures, but in how he positions himself emotionally. Younger men try to prove themselves all the time. They talk loudly, get excited, and exaggerate their gestures. The mature man, who understands his own energy, exudes authority effortlessly. He doesn't compete, he takes up space. He doesn't fight, he is noticed. I distinctly remember one night watching this happen before my eyes. A group of young people were trying hard to attract attention, talking loudly, making forced jokes. At a nearby table, a man of approximately 45 years old sat alone. He didn't make any moves to attract attention. It was just there, Erect posture, calm expression, present gaze. There was no anxiety in the gestures, no attempt to prove anything. In less than 10 minutes, 3 women approached him spontaneously. None of them even looked at the noisy boys. Why? Because that man conveyed presence, control, and confident silence. The attitude that transforms a young woman's perception of an older man is simple, but powerful. Silent presence with a steady gaze and emotional control. A woman feels when a man is not trying hard to look like something, but is just comfortable being who he is. She notices when he doesn't, become destabilized when he observes before speaking, when he knows how to shut up and just look. This activates in her a sense of mystery, security, and respect. She feels that that man can guide, protect, and surprise. And most importantly, he's not there to ask for approval, but to calmly choose who he will share his energy with. Now I want to know from you, in social situations, do you usually act with this silent presence? Or do you feel like you still try to prove yourself too much? Write here in the comments, I already use this attitude, or I want to learn how to use it. Tell me what you feel when you are in front of younger women, because now we are going to go into an even deeper point about what really attracts them in a mature man, and it has nothing to do with appearance. Most men believe that young women are only attracted to money, status, or looks. This is a superficial view that ends up making many mature men sabotage themselves. The truth is that what really attracts a younger woman is not what a man shows on the outside, but what he conveys on the inside. And when we talk about deep attraction, one that goes beyond the physical, we are talking about emotional security. This is the real psychological secret behind the fascination young women feel for older men. They no longer want a boy who loses himself in fits of jealousy, who becomes insecure when he receives attention, or who explodes emotionally at the slightest sign of conflict. They've already seen this, they've already tested this, and they realize that it doesn't lead anywhere. What they're really looking for is a man who stays in the center, even when he's tested. A man who listens more than he reacts, who sees beyond words, who responds firmly without losing his calm. This kind of presence is rare, and because it is rare, it becomes magnetic. In a study of female social behavior, researchers interviewed more than 1,000 women between the ages of 20 and 30. The majority associated emotional maturity with future security. And do you know what this activates in the female unconscious? An ancient instinct to bond. The woman feels that that man can be a safe haven. And the strangest thing is that she may not even consciously understand why she is feeling attracted, but feel. Because emotional security conveys value, a value that cannot be faked, cannot be improvised. Either you have it, or you need to develop it. And this explains why so many men who try to impress with material possessions fail. They show off what they have, but they don't know how to maintain a stable energy. Meanwhile, the mature man who controls his emotions, who listens attentively, who responds clearly, awakens a type of attraction that younger men can't compete with. Now tell me something. Have you ever noticed a woman looking at you differently when you remained calm in a tense situation? Comment below, I've felt that, or I need to practice more. Because what comes next is even stronger. There is a single phrase that, when said at the right moment, can make her heart skip a beat on the first date. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about. This is one of those phrases that completely changes the mood of a date. When you say it at the right moment, in the right tone, looking her in the eyes with sincerity and presence, something happens. She stops, she looks at you differently, and in that moment she feels like she is in front of someone who really sees her. Not as a pretty face or a desirable body, but as a woman who carries within herself layers that few have the patience or emotional intelligence to access. One of my mentees, a 52-year-old man, told me that he used this phrase at a dinner with a woman 20 years younger. It was their first date. They were chatting normally until he said, "You know what I like most about you? It's not what everyone sees, it's what you try to hide." The effect was immediate. She smiled, remained silent for a few seconds, and replied, "No one has ever said that to me." And that was the beginning of an emotional connection that no expensive gift or superficial compliment could create. This phrase works because it activates one of the most powerful emotional triggers in female psychology, the desire to be truly seen. Every woman, no matter how confident she seems, has something she hides. It could be an insecurity, a dream, a pain, a doubt. And when a mature man shows that he can see what is beyond the surface, he stands out from everyone else. He effortlessly proves that he is attentive, that he is not just looking, but seeing. This type of speech does not come from a memorized script. It comes from a posture of mindfulness, sensitivity, and emotional maturity. Young women are tired of men who only talk about themselves, who try to show power or status. They want someone who sees them, who awakens in them the feeling that there is a rare, authentic connection there. and not just another empty exchange. Now I want to know, have you ever said something like this to a woman? Or have you ever wanted to say it but didn't know how? Write here in the comments, I've already said it, or I want to learn how to say it. Because now we are going to talk about a decisive point, a mistake that can ruin everything, even after you have created the perfect connection. This is exactly where 90% of mature men stumble without realizing it. They get here well, they communicate with presence, maybe they even get their words and body language right. But all it takes is for the woman to comment something about the age difference, and they make the fatal mistake. They justify themselves. They say phrases like, I know I'm older than you, but, or, you must think it's strange to go out with a man my age. And in doing so, they end up destroying all the attraction they could have built. Because at that moment, what the woman feels is that he doesn't see himself as enough. He is asking for approval. He's trying to explain himself, as if there's something wrong with who he is. And this gesture, even if subtle, conveys insecurity. In the psychology of attraction, what really arouses desire in a young woman is not a man's age. It's how he positions himself in relation to his own age. When he apologizes or tries to smooth over the difference, he shows fear of judgment. He takes away his own worth and puts her on a pedestal. The unconscious message is clear. I'm not as good as you. And that completely shuts off the flow of emotional attraction. Now, compare that to a man who, upon hearing a comment about age, simply responds with something like, age has only brought me clarity, and clarity is sexy. This response is powerful. It asserts value without being aggressive. It shows that the man knows who he is at peace with his journey, and is not trying to fit into anyone else's mold. This type of response changes her perception instantly. She begins to see this man as someone who knows what he wants, who doesn't need to prove himself, and who is there by choice, not out of need. This attitude is what truly challenges and attracts. She feels like she is in the presence of a rare man, who doesn't need to ask permission to exist in a woman's life. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever made this mistake of justifying yourself because of your age? Or have you already overcome this and are positioning yourself with confidence? Right here in the comments, I've already made this mistake. Or, today I position myself clearly. I want to know how you deal with this part, because it defines much more than you realize. And there is something important that we still need to talk about to close this cycle. If you've made it this far, it's because you feel ready to play a new game. The game of conscious attraction, emotional seduction, and strategic communication. Not the forced mechanical seduction full of empty formulas, but the kind that comes from your essence, your maturity, and your clarity as a man. By now, you've understood that it's not about age, appearance, or trying to compete with younger guys. It's about positioning yourself firmly, speaking with intention, looking with presence, and understanding the female mind deeply. It's about knowing what to say, how to say it, and most importantly, why to say it. Each of the phrases I've revealed here is not just a set of words, it's a key that opens emotional doors, when used with intelligence and sensitivity. Now, I want to hear from you. Which of these phrases or attitudes will you test first? Which one moved you the most? Made the most sense? Most awakened something within your perception about young women and relationships? Right here in the comments. I'm going to use the third sentence, or my favorite was the second, for example. This helps me understand where you are in this process and shows me what is really resonating with you. And if you felt that this content gave you clarity, confidence, and practical tools, tell me if you want a continuation. Because there is much more behind this universe of female psychology applied to attraction. More advanced techniques, phrases with a deep emotional impact, and strategies that will take you to another level of communication with women. So, if you want part 2 with more phrases and behaviors that really work for mature men to seduce with intelligence and presence, comment now. I want part 2. I will read each comment and know exactly what to bring you in the next videos. And always remember this: true attraction does not come from what you have. It comes from the clarity of who you have become. This is what differentiates those who try from those who truly conquer.